Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to another wonderful episode of Onespar Weekly. That's the name of the show. We're gonna rob a bank again. John Wick is gonna be our gunman, and yeah, we're gonna see how it goes. We're gonna talk a little bit. Let's go ahead and ready. So this time I actually picked a very low difficulty for this mission. So I kind of want to breeze through it. Oh, you see, this didn't happen last time on camera, but um, we can't do this mission. Like, this is randomized. Sometimes this vault, it's in the same place. It's right on the other side of this wall either time, regardless of which side it's from. But if the door is over here, it's actually totally impossible to do this quietly. Because you can't keep people over here from seeing it, and if they get alerted, then the bank tellers have a silent alarm back there, which they hit, and it can't work out. I always restart when I see that, so hopefully I'm just gonna set this up again really quick, and we'll get going. This week my topic is going to be a little bit different. I'm actually not going to harp on this too much. I'm going to see if I can just branch off into other things. But something that I've been considering a lot and that I've been thinking about a lot is self-sabotage when it comes to creative work. It's something that I've had experience with through my entire life. And interesting glitch. Yeah, okay. I think I took a look from under the ground, and I think we're in the right spot. Yeah, the door's there. That means we're good. So let me explain what I mean, because it's something, like I said, I've been dealing with since I was young, since my very first creative endeavors as a young child that I've experienced, which is just the act of, well, okay, so when you are a person, and I'm not in any way trying to present myself as like some kind of industry veteran or anything like that, but from what I understand, when you have a profession in the arts, when you are a professional artiste of sorts, I'm gonna try not to make the button clicking sound too much, but I do have very clicky buttons. Ever since I was, or yes, so if you're an artist as your profession, then your skill, what is essentially your resume is basically your portfolio, which is, just simply put, it's just a collection of your work. It's a collection of stuff that you have done before, and because of that, it's really hard to be taken seriously before you've done, before you have a portfolio. And once you become well known, then everything that's known about you is based on your portfolio. That's because that's your past work. So my problem, something that I deal with a lot, and I won't lie, I'm having a little bit of trouble. In general, I would say this has kind of like hamstrung me in the past and continues to do so. But it's always been doing things and then not keeping them. So like growing up, I was really into music and composition and things like that. And I wrote, like, for instance, on there's an online service, which I forget the name of now, which allows you to write music. Basically, it's like Word online for music, or Google Docs, and I create so often, just create so many different things, like little riffs for various instruments, and mostly like classical stuff. But I really do a lot of experimenting and a lot of trying out new stuff. And I would say at least 90% of, like, when I went to college, 90% of my collegiate work you know, stuff that I was doing during college, it was on that service, and I will say that most of it has been lost to the Wayback Machine. Like so many different things that I worked on for hours and hours. You know, I basically just delete them after, you know, after I lose interest, or once I feel like I'm too distant from it and I can't continue. It's really big issue, and it's just something that I kind of wanted to you know, like expand on, like, because it's weird. It's a weird thing to want to do, to get rid of something that, you know, is potentially very valuable, especially if you have any intention of, you know, making something serious out of something like this. Um, but at the same time, despite the fact that I am aware of this and I know this, I continue to do things like that. Like, so there are a lot of videos, a lot of you know, not only videos but a lot of like programs and stuff like that that I've been working on, even just in the past year, in the past couple years, which I won't even say that they never ultimately went anywhere. And some stories as well, some short stories and short writing things as well, but to a lesser extent. Um, so yeah, like all the stuff that I've basically been working on that I would consider to be, you know, aside from my work, which is basically, you know, just been menial labor, is really like the passion, you know, my life's passion, so to speak, I guess. Um, and to be completely honest, it's like I hate I. Mm, it's it's a strange thing because to an extent, yes, I understand that it's a bad thing, and I'm, you know, I'm doing myself a disservice by continuing in this practice. But on the other hand, there's and this is where I'm gonna kind of defend my actions, but only half-heartedly, because again, I don't really think of any of them as, you know, really good or anything like that. So I'll just basically offer my explanation, more or less. Where is this? The security guard is just walking across the street. How are you guarding the bank, dude? What are you guarding out there? Jesus Christ. Freaking, this is what you get for minimum wage. Um, yeah, so I, you know, I do menial labor and stuff like that, but this is like kind of what this these projects are what I really enjoy and what I really kind of like identify as my thing, you know, like kind of this is what I do. And um that's right. I was trying to talk about it just bear with me here. I'm sorry. I'm still new to this whole talking and gaming and stuff thing. I'm trying to get better at it here. Um so what I was actually talking about, let me see if I can pull this back now. What I was actually talking about was yeah, my semi half-hearted defense of my actions, which is that it's there's just a weight, basically. I can't explain it any other way, but there's a weight that that I feel like is always on you when you have something and there's a possibility that you'll go back to it. Like there's always going to be some sort of tie, some sort of emotional chain that makes you, if not think about it, because I mean, there's a possibility that you forget about it, but there's always like this sort of semi obligation there that, you know, this is it's like having a baby, you know. If you have a baby out there, it's like, yeah, you don't have to take care of it, but I mean, you know, that number one, you're a dick, and it's swearing already. God dang it. I mean, number one, you're not a good person, but you know, number two is that there's always the chance that it'll come back to you, and you know, you'll think of it again, and it'll be in a new light. And I can't find this last guard wandering the streets, but I can't do the drill until he's dead. Is that him? Is that the guard? No, that's not him. Where the heck did this dude go? I want to talk to his manager. Jesus. Um, so you have that tie to what you create, I guess, sort of. At least that's the way I see it. And for me, since most of my projects end up sort of in limbo, like in a kind of place where I'm like, I might think about it again, I might not ever think about it again. I won't know until it hits me, and it's not, it's not by any means good to conduct yourself in that fashion, but that's kind of just the way I feel. And um, it's really helpful when I have something that's just blocking me, and I look at it. It's in my folder. It's in whatever computer folder I have all my other stuff in, and it's just sitting there. And it's something that I know that I want to do something more with, but also I just I would feel bad if I abandoned it. If I would feel bad if I abandoned my baby and basically had another kid while that one was just out in the street somewhere. So it feels bad, and I'm gonna stop using this sort of tortured analogy because it's about to get really awful once I start getting to what happens next. Um, but anyway, yeah, I feel bad for abandoning a project for another project if I think that I'm gonna work on it again, because I feel like I'm really attached to it, and I feel like, well, if I'm spending my energy on something, I should spend it on the thing that came first. And it doesn't make sense to start something new when I already have something that came first. And so it's really difficult for me to move on from a project which, I honestly, like, if I'm 100% honest with myself, I have no intention, no intention, at least at the time, of ever investing in again. And it's still basically dictating my life. And I just really don't like that. And because of that feeling of obligation, every time, not every time, but I'm getting faster at it now. But whenever I lose interest in something, I usually, the next time I see it, I just ask myself the question. I'm like, is this something that I'm going to care about? And am I going to put more effort into it? Or is it better to move on? And usually, like 9 times out of 10, and since I've had this channel, it's actually hasn't happened too much. I've only actually canceled one fully formed video, but I I know it'll definitely happen at some point. But you know, it I'll be at the tail end of maybe like a 4 or 5 hour project that I've been working on, and hey, that's a nifty trick, huh? And and I just have to think to myself, I'm like, well, is it going to get more of my attention, or is it just done? Am I going to drop it now? What am I going to do? And more often than not, I just drop it. And when I drop it, I don't move it somewhere. I don't keep it in the recycle bin in a separate anything. No, it's just deleted and it's gone. And you know, I don't feel too bad about it, because ideas aren't like money, where you invest a certain amount, and then if the project is canceled, they're gone forever. It's like, if you expend ideas on a project, and then you move to another project without doing anything, you can just basically recycle your old ideas into your new project. And I think to an extent that almost even makes things better, because you get to, rather than expend everything that you have one by one as you think of it, you kind of have the opportunity to take a step back and try to see if maybe two different ideas that you have could be the same idea. And I think, for the sake of efficiency, for the sake of artistic efficiency, I think that I may have an argument there, maybe not. um, I definitely can't make any arguments when it comes to efficiency, because I mean, there are people. Didn't work that time. There are people out there who can come out with 3 videos the same length as this one, with more entertaining content and more talking, every day forever. And those are the true kings, definitely, truly. Those are the lords of our time. But I'm not one of them. I only aspire. And so, for the sake of efficiency, I think it almost makes sense to, rather than hold out, because if you have an idea for one thing that you're going to make public, then you're not going to use the exact same idea in another project, because then if people see the same idea twice, it's usually kind of not effective unless it was planned out that way. And so it's one of those things where you really just sort of want to do your one thing just like that and keep it that way. And don't recycle unless you're willing to accept the downfalls that come with that. The public relational downfalls that come with reusing concepts on multiple works. I mean, some people get away with it, and they make a career out of it. Usually very productive and lasting careers. But it's still something you're known for, and you have to make peace with that. But for me, I definitely don't, like, if I have an idea, like if I have a story idea, if I have like an idea for like a program or a web page or something like that, or a video, I'm definitely in the camp where I want that idea to exist there only. And I wouldn't reuse the same idea unless we'll mix this up a little bit this time. Let's do like this. We're gonna mix up how we do these lock boxes, because I think that could be cool. So I don't like to. I would be okay if I were to recycle an idea into another work. I would, first of all, make sure that the idea is good on its own, and then come up with something separate which incorporates that from the ground up. It doesn't make sense to have something, and then, like, for instance, you think, oh, I made something and this one aspect of it seems to be popular, and so I'll just use that aspect again on another thing that's completely different that I was working on. I think that's a dangerous road to kind of tread, because you never know. You want to get the alchemy. You want to make sure that as much of the original product is in there, and you're putting enough of the original product into the final mix when you make an iteration of it. And so it's, I know what I'm explaining right now is very roundabout. I don't know if it makes any fucking sense, because like I'm not giving any context to like what kind of ideas I'm talking about or anything like that. So let's say if you're writing like a story, if you're writing a short story, whatever, and your concept is, I don't know, a martial arts tournament, and you make a short story about a tournament, and you have some nice characters, and you have some nice settings, and the battles are paced well, and your verbiage is very smooth, and people like it. And then if you were, say, working on another story aside that about a haunted house, like some kind of horror aspect of it, and then if in the middle of working on that you put out something completely different, and then you say, oh, well, that's doing well, I'll incorporate some sort of fighting tournament aspect into this other work as well, because that's sort of what that seems to be what people like. It's like, no, you don't you don't want to do that. If you're going to make, if going again with this awful analogy, where do I come up with these? If you're going with this horror fighting analogy, then you want to create an idea from scratch that incorporates both of those things, knowing that that's what you want to do, and then changing in the middle of it is just garbage. It's garbage. Not okay. Not okay at all. Um, so that's basically like kind of what I'm saying is that I don't, um, that's the way I would prefer things to be, and especially I think when you get into into industries like current game design, like in the AAA sphere, of course, it's so. And I guess literature is similar to an extent, and I mean, music has been the same way forever. But it's just everything is just so based on the flavor of the month, and it's nothing that changes, no project that's ever changed to reflect another, successful project midway has ever been praised for that. Like there's never been, when Call of Duty originally came out, and the idea of simulating war from the eyes of a soldier on the ground, that idea was novel at first because Call of Duty was really a video game about World War II, and I've never played it personally, but I've played a lot of the sequels, and I know that that's the idea. But then after that, the idea of a World War II shooter became standard, and then after that, like every game became just a little bit more Call of Duty flavored. It had a couple of aspects from that game that where you could just tell they were like, oh, this is one of the defining aspects of this popular game, and we're going to add it to our game to make it better. And there are a lot of smarter people than I who explain stuff like that. Like Jim Sterling is really good at calling stuff like that out. I think there's probably other games journalism publications that you can find. Anything that'll tell it like it is and isn't in anybody's pockets will let you know that that's the big thing. And yeah, I don't like it. In literature too, there's, I think, I'm not as familiar with modern literature, granted, but definitely since the Harry Potter books have come out, I see so many books that look like dead on exactly like Harry Potter. Like just from the ground up, like it's a kid with some kind of abnormality who learns that they have powers, and they live in a terrible like step family and this and that, and it's just everything feels like it's kind of not everything, of course. I'm talking about like trashy fiction here, but you definitely see a lot of that rehashing. But I feel like that doesn't have to be bad. It doesn't have to be bad on its own. Like you can, again, if from the beginning you have the idea, going back to Call of Duty, something that I'm a little more comfortable with. If you have the idea from the beginning, you're like, okay, well, Call of Duty made a pretty interesting shooter about World War II. Let's take some aspect of that and incorporate our own little twist on it with something else. Then you can have like a game like Valiant Hearts, which was about World War I, granted, but it had a lot of the story beats of one of the better Call of Duty games, one of the better cinematic Call of Duty games, but it was also in its own right a great puzzle platformer, two-dimensional puzzle platformer, and in many ways, definitely an incredibly amazing dramatic experience when compared to the melodrama of Call of Duty. Valiant Hearts is one of those games where it took just the right ingredients. It was mindful when it started. It was like, what parts of this are we going to take for our game and use to make it better? And I think a lot of the big set pieces, a lot of the a lot of the confrontations, the music and the timing and all that stuff, with the exception of the the musical levels. Um, a lot of it felt a lot like like a Call of Duty game, and in all of the best ways. None of the awful ways. um, so that's a way that you can do it like really well. And as bringing it back around to like my stuff, um, I even I guess maybe it's different for different people, but for me, that was awful. Everything about that was terrible. I hate phone calls. I should have put myself on Do Not Disturb, but anyway, it's too late for that. So, um, yeah. So the fighting tournament, I'll have recontextualized my thoughts about it because I'll be like, at the time, maybe I was thinking that that was the right way to express like human conflict amongst a lot of different people. But then maybe by the next week, I'm thinking, well, it would make more sense for this to be more like a social setting, like at a university or something, where people are trying to get used to each other and live together. And it can a lot of things like that can happen where you know at like I've basically I've held on to some tiny part of what I like about my idea, and then I just throw away. I've just not even. Oh my gosh, this is glitching out super hard. I've not even really looked at anything else. Oh, money. Blah blah blah. I'm just so all over the place. This is the worst. I apologize to you, the viewer, for this. Um, mm, Trying to get back one more time to what I was talking about. Actually, um, if you watch the last episode, you know my thing with these boxes. I just start thinking about my YouTube channel. Um, So yeah, I've decided that I like one part or certain parts of a previous idea, but I want to recontextualize them and use them in a different way. But I can't because they're tied to this other thing, which I don't identify with anymore, or at least I don't identify with it as strongly, or I identify with it like kind of in a different way. Uh, so because of that, it's just really hard to see something like that and say, well, I have another way to think about that. I've thought about it different, and like if I'm just being completely honest, then my I consider my past ideas inferior, like just straight up. It's just not as they're not as good or right or me, and so because of that, it's a real weight lifted when I can just be like, you know what? I don't identify with this anymore. I don't like it. I don't This isn't me, and it's not what I want to do. Even if I have some kind of there's a lot of sentimentality to it. There's a lot of like, I worked on this. This was kind of like there's a piece of my soul in there, and it's really sad to see that kind of disappear into the nothing. But at the same time, it's really refreshing because it feels good to walk away. Um, and so that was my that was basically my abbreviated devil's advocate moment there. Only 20 minutes or so. But that's kind of why I do that and why I struggle with doing that. So we can stop talking about it from that respect anyway. And instead, we can switch to the respect of why it's super bad and awful. And most of that has to do with, like I was saying before, building a portfolio, but it's also, it's even more than that because as not only as an artist, but just as a person and as a someone who is practicing a skill, you grow you grow when you get feedback. You know, you can, if you like, for instance, I have, I can put videos on the web and just make them completely private, and that doesn't make them any different from, let's say, the same video that's released publicly, but I wouldn't learn from the video that I never released because it's, it's not been open to any criticism, and it's not been open to any kind of scrutiny from any other source. And I mean, believe you me, no one scrutinizes me better than myself. But there are aspects of something that you just won't get unless you expose it to the world, and that can be difficult because, like I said, a lot of the time you put a little piece of your soul into whatever it is you're working on, and so when people, trudge all over it, it hurts and it's not easy, but it's something that you kind of have to just face and learn to face. And so when you're like that, when you put a lot of work into something and then it never gets scrutinized, it's hard to grow from that experience. Definitely, some people would tell you that if you're up against the same wall, like I was describing earlier, it's better to just finish it, to get it finished, to get something out of it, and then put it out, because then you get the scrutiny, and then you get, even if you agree with all of the, oh gosh, dogs, no, this is not okay. They're so loud. I'm gonna do this right in the middle of this video. I'm gonna hate this. This is gonna be the worst thing in the world to edit. I hate myself. I'll be back. What did I tell you guys? Enough. You too. Enough. All right, we're back again. Solved the dog issue. Don't worry, I didn't solve it permanently or anything like that. I just gave him a little. Oh, it looks like they're joining me now. Just gave him a little stern notice that I did not want them to be loud because I was doing something. Oh, and there's one of them. Wow. Hi. Yeah. So. Oh, my brain's all over the place. Right. So you want to get that scrutiny, and even if you agree with everything people say, even if you acknowledge that it's awful and you only did it to do it, there's still the opportunity that you'll get some genuine criticism, because there is something in there that, even if it's not that good, that some part of you is, did that, and at some point you put effort into something, and if someone says, yeah, everything about it was awful, but there's this one thing that you did that I kind of liked, except this and that, then someone saying that it was just awful is not helpful. But the other juicy little bit is actually incredibly helpful, and that's the best kind of feedback that you can get. As long as you take it to heart and don't try to deny it and stuff like that. It's no good to be overly defensive of your own work. It makes no sense to be that way. So you want to do that, and you want to build up your portfolio. You want to get the scrutiny of other people, and then on top of that, it feels really good. I mean, it just this is. I don't know. I mean, I've made some videos on this channel. There's got to be almost 15, and it just feels nice to, do this and put it out and have a thing. And did the last video get no views as of the recording of this one? Yeah. But I mean, whatever. I don't care. It felt good to put it out, to get it out there. You know, I feel like I'm actually making some sort of progress. My small white meter, my circle, my white circle in the middle of the screen is filling up slowly on my YouTube channel. And you know, whether or not it fills up all the way or my finger slips off the right bumper button before it fills up is to be seen. But you know, I want to I like, sorry, you know, I like that feeling of putting something out, and it's generally a good feeling. It's a nice little dopamine rush. Like it'll get you going. Um, so I kind of like this way of opening up the drawers. Actually, it wasn't so bad. Um, Gosh, yeah. I mean, that's really all there is to it. I think. I mean, there could be other good reasons to save work and stuff like that and not throw it away. But I mean, all you really need to know is that generally you shouldn't, even though I do, and you know, to any kids watching, I regret it. And if you ever create something, you should save it because, you know, you never know. That could be, you know, even if you just get a box of your old stuff, you might find out that when you were 5, you had like a really insightful idea hidden in like a crayon drawing or something. And if it reignites something inside of you, then you'll be happy you did. And I think that same kind of intuition can hit you at 5, and it can hit you at 15 and 25. And you know, whenever you find something old, you might think of something that you haven't thought of in a while and think about it in a new way, and maybe thinking about it in a great way. Uh, but you know, it doesn't really do anyone good to come up with something and then spend a lot of time on it and then delete it, because like realistically, you're just sort of throwing away your time. And generally speaking, that's not a good thing. I mean, you don't want you don't want to you know, waste your time on stuff. And I mean, it doesn't have to be like a total waste of time, because I think there's a lot of value in experiences. And so maybe if the very first web page, you know, if you never release your very first web page, then, you know, you can still take the lessons you learned from that, and, you know, it'll be the next page you build will be a memory of the last one, you know, because it has all of your because it includes all of your, you know, coalesced skills that you learned from that first page. And you know, to that extent, yeah, like maybe if it's your very first thing, you don't like really have to save it. I mean, like like honestly, your kindergarten crayon drawing, I mean, maybe it'll be interesting, but it's probably not going to be a masterpiece. um and I mean, yeah, that's really at the end of the day what the most important thing um is to not judge your work based on its quality, because the fact of the matter is that every other person in the entire world is going to judge your work based on its quality, and you're the only one who can judge it based on its sentimental value. There's no one else in the world, unless, you know, unless it was someone who was involved in its production, who who can gain that value from it. And so because of that, you know, you're kind of like the you know, you got to stand up for your own work, and you have to stand up for your own ideas, because no one else will. I mean, and the same can be said about, you know, yourself in general, but especially when it comes to any kind of like artistic anything, any kind of passion work, any kind of, you know, whatever. It's, you know, it'll never be as important to anyone else as it will be to you in that moment. And so it's important to kind of also move ahead with that sort of mindset. You know, it'll never be that important to any other person other than for the one who spent their time and effort making it. And so, that because of that, that's why I kind of don't care that, I have, these awful videos, these Dwarf Fortress podcasts, this cell phone recorded Payday 2. By the way, I still hold that this is incredibly boring. I hope you haven't been watching this because literally, it's a replay of the last one. If you watch the last video, you can basically see exactly what's going on here. Because it's the same. And now this is the fun part where I get to steal all the stuff at the same time. But, yeah, I mean, it's not a good game. It's, I'm not... I don't know if I'm not enjoying my time is the right way to put it, but I'm not getting anything incredible out of this, personally. But by... doing this and by, making a thing out of it, by turning it into something that I'm putting effort into and then releasing to the wider world, this clicking has got to be so annoying if you can hear it. I don't know if you can. By making it that, it's become transformed. It is now something that is actually kind of important to me. It's something that I care about, it is going to be, I cannot describe to you how much of a pain in the butt it is going to be to sync up this audio and this video. You see, this is why if you record on your phone, always put it in Do Not Disturb. Because if somebody calls you and they mess up your recording, you are so screwed. Guys, my computer sucks. It's not... it takes me literally, I can click on the video somewhere. I want to scrub to a certain point in the video. I have to wait multiple seconds before my computer can load a single frame on a video, at another spot. And when you have to edit in, you have to oftentimes you have to select various parts of the video and you have to play them. You have to listen. You have to be like, is it perfect? Is one faster than the other? Which is it supposed to be? There's a lot to it, and it's exasperating, especially when you have to take your time. There's nothing else here. What am I doing? I got to get the hell out of here. I'm going crazy. It just sucks, I'm putting my effort into this, and it's a labor of love. I'm not making money here. I'm not gaining popularity. That's for damn sure. This isn't gratifying outside of the fact of it. And I don't mean that in any kind of negative way, because I enjoy doing it. And I hope that I can do stuff like this more. But, if it wasn't a labor of love, if it was just playing a video game, it would mean basically nothing. And so, I appreciate that I can put some effort into this, talk a little bit about a little bit of stuff and transform it into more of a rounded experience. Because, I mean, the secret genius of the show is just really that it's, I'm proving my point about this game simply by playing it, simply by doing this show and, recording it. And so I get to prove my point about, games and about life in general and stuff like that. And I also get to talk, which is something that I just don't do. And, and that's it's cool. It's there's value to this outside of just, the idea of, maybe I'll make some money. It's got its own appeal to it, and that's more than anything just because I have to put work into it, and I wish that I was doing more work to make I wish I could spend more of my man hours giggity improving things and improving the quality and improving the editing and stuff like that. I mean, I don't really edit these, but Like for this one, the audio is all split up and fucked up. Excuse my language. And all that. And I'm just gonna have to like go in there and surgically, realign everything with the video and do cuts and stuff like that. And most of my time that I spend doing that, I guarantee you, is just going to be clicking on the screen and waiting for something to happen. And I do not look forward to that. But I do look forward to this video coming out and seeing it on YouTube. And hey, who knows, maybe you do too. So anyway, yeah, that was it for this week. I hope to see you again next week. Thanks, everybody.